One believes he is the future. The other believes he is the end of everything. And when those two thoughts collide, there is no peace left to hold them together. The silence between them is heavier than any explosion. He stands alone, staring into a world that never truly felt like his. A boy caught between two forces he never asked for. One side promises safety, control, and a strange kind of love that feels more like a cage. The other side offers freedom, but it comes with confusion, pain, and no clear path forward. Every step he takes feels like it belongs to someone else's story, not his own. He remembers moments that should have felt warm, but they never fully did. Smiles that didn't reach the eyes. Words that sounded soft but carried weight behind them. A presence that filled every room before he even entered it. A figure that claimed to care, but only when things went their way. And still, part of him wanted to believe it was real, because believing is easier than facing the truth. But truth has a way of growing louder when you try to ignore it. Now, that truth is standing right in front of him. Not as comfort, not as protection, but as something much harder to face. Something that does not bend, does not change, and does not understand no as an answer. The boy feels it in his chest first. That tight pressure that comes before fear turns into anger. His hands are not shaking, but his thoughts are. Questions keep rising, faster than he can stop them. Why does everything feel controlled? Why does love feel like pressure? Why does freedom feel like punishment? He looks up, and for the first time, he does not lower his eyes. That small moment changes everything, because somewhere deep inside, the one who once followed without question is starting to disappear. And what is left behind is not ready to be shaped anymore. There is a long pause, heavy and sharp. No one speaks. No one moves. It feels like the world itself is waiting to see what he becomes next, not in that silence. The idea of family stops being soft, it becomes a test. And not everyone is meant to pass it. He was never just a man in a suit standing above the world. He became something larger in his own mind long before anyone else agreed with it. Control was never a goal for him. It was the natural order of things. In his view, the world only made sense when someone like him stood at the top of it. Not asking, not waiting, just deciding. Every smile he showed to the public was carefully shaped. Every word was chosen like a weapon wrapped in kindness. People saw a hero, but underneath that image was something far more rigid. Something that did not bend for anyone. To him, weakness was not something to protect. It was something to correct. And that belief did not stay outside his home. It followed him into every silence, every conversation, every moment where someone else thought they had a choice. Then came the boy, not planned, not prepared for, just there. At first, he did not see him as anything important. Just a piece of a past he thought he had already controlled. But slowly, that changed. Not because of affection in the normal sense, but because of recognition. He saw himself in him, and that changed everything. Because in his mind, the boy was not just a child. He was proof. Proof that power could continue. That legacy could be shaped. That the world would not slip away if it was guided correctly. But there was a problem. The boy did not respond the way he expected. There was softness there, hesitation, questions that should not have been asked, emotions that did not fit into a controlled world, and worst of all, moments of resistance that grew stronger over time. At first, it was small. A pause before answering, a quiet disagreement, a look that did not lower fast enough. But small things always grow. And he noticed every one of them, because control is not just about action. It is about awareness, about sensing when something is no longer aligned with your design of reality. So he adjusted, slowly, carefully. He tried to guide instead of command, to shape instead of break, to call it love instead of pressure. But underneath all of it, the intention never changed. The boy was still meant to fit into the same shape, a shape that was already decided. The boy, however, was not forming correctly, and that was becoming more visible each day. There were moments when he would watch him from a distance, studying him like a problem that should have been simple but kept evolving. The boy's hesitation was no longer just confusion. It was awareness. He was starting to notice the gaps between words and meaning, between kindness and control. And that kind of awareness is dangerous in a world built on influence. Still, he did not step back, because stepping back would mean admitting something he refused to accept, that maybe, just maybe, the future he imagined was not guaranteed. So instead, he leaned in closer. He spoke more. He guided more. He tightened the invisible threads, convinced that structure would bring clarity. That certainty would erase doubt. But the more he tightened, the more something inside the boy loosened. Not in fear. In separation, that as if a line was being drawn quietly between them. Not with anger, not with noise, but with understanding. And that understanding was beginning to shift direction, because the boy was no longer only listening, he was observing, and observation leads to questions. Questions lead to doubt, and doubt is the first step away from control. He did not see it as loss yet, but he felt it. In the pauses, in the silences, in the way responses were no longer immediate, in the way presence no longer guaranteed alignment. Something was slipping, and for someone who believed the world should move according to will, that feeling was unacceptable, not because it was dangerous, but because it was unfamiliar. The change did not happen all at once. It grew slowly, like something alive inside silence. At first, it was only hesitation, small pauses before answering, a look that stayed a little too long, a question that should have been simple but turned into something heavier. Nothing obvious, nothing loud, but enough to be felt. Then came distance, not physical, emotional. A kind of space forming between words that used to feel connected. Where once there was automatic understanding, now there was thought. And thought changes everything. He noticed it immediately, not because it was said out loud, but because control depends on timing. When timing shifts, control starts to crack in places no one can see right away. So he tried to fix it in the only way he understood. By closing the gap, more attention, more presence, more guidance. But guidance can start to feel like pressure when it never allows silence. The boy began to feel it in small ways first. In the way certain questions always came with expected answers. In the way disagreement was not met with anger, but with correction. Soft correction, but still correction. And that softness made it more confusing, because it did not feel like force. It felt like being shaped, like something already decided was being slowly placed over him. Even when he was not ready to wear it, he started noticing patterns. Every time he made a choice, there was a response that guided it back. Every time he questioned something, the answer came wrapped in certainty. Not loud certainty, calm certainty. The kind that tries to end doubt before it can grow. But doubt had already started. It was quiet, but it was there. And once doubt enters, nothing stays the same. The boy began pulling back, not with rebellion, but with distance. He stopped sharing everything. He stopped reacting immediately. He started thinking before speaking, not because he wanted to resist, but because he was no longer sure what was expected from him. That uncertainty became a space of its own. And in that space, something else grew. Awareness. Awareness that not every caring word feels free. Awareness that not every guiding hand allows direction. Awareness that some love can feel like a structure you are expected to live inside, not outside of. He did not have the language for it yet, but he felt it. And feelings without language are the most dangerous kind, because they cannot be easily corrected. From the outside, nothing looked broken. From the inside, everything was starting to separate. There were moments when the boy would look at him and see something different than before. Not just a protector, not just a guide, but something fixed, something unchanging, something that expected the world to adjust around it. And for the first time, That did not feel safe. It felt heavy. The kind of heavy that does not move. No matter how much you try to understand it, the boy began asking smaller questions, but they carried more weight than before. Why does it always have to be this way? Why does it feel like there is only one right path? Why does disagreement feel like distance? None of these questions were spoken in anger. They were spoken in confusion. But confusion is the first step towards separation. And separation, once it begins, does not ask for permission. He could sense it growing, even if it was not fully formed yet. The shift in tone, the slower responses, the thinking before agreeing. It was not open defiance. It was something worse for him. It was independence forming without approval. So he responded the only way he knew how. By tightening the structure. By reinforcing certainty. By reminding, without directly saying, what the world looked like when it was properly understood. But each reminder now landed differently. What once felt like guidance now felt like repetition. And repetition, without choice, starts to sound like control. Still, neither of them fully broke the surface, yet everything remained contained. But beneath that surface, the distance was.